Gamecocks win last night in hoops. We'll get to that before we get you out of here. But it is a big day for Gamecock football. Welcome and Merry Christmas, bud.
Appreciate it, guys. Hope you're having a happy holidays. And JC, not only to you, but to everybody at the Big Spur. I don't see how you guys do it. Throughout this whole month, this week, this day. Who's in, who's out? Got to keep making those phone calls. Hats off to you as always, sir.
Well, thank you, Dave. We appreciate that. And I know we got a lot of respect for you guys, too, that are on the beat. I know I can't do the beat, man. I can't sit in the press box. I can't go to press conferences. I lived that for a little while, and it just wasn't my bag. So hats off to you guys as well that grind it every day. And unlike some of your cohorts in the newspaper industry, you actually go report and have sources and try to track things down and have a nose for a story. So, and I'm not damning everybody in that industry. I'm just saying you're one of a kind. So, hats off to you as well.
Appreciate that.
DC, as pointed out by JC this morning, there are 8 players in this class from the high school ranks who will play in national bowl games, the Under Armour All-American Bowl and the Army All-American Bowl. It's never fair to judge these classes until they get on campus. They play for a few years, especially with the transfer portal. It's hard to ask quite crazy questions. Is this the best class ever? Whatever. But you can ask it on paper. Like it's fair to ask that question. It's not high in numbers. If it was, it would be ranked even higher than it is. But from a quality of player standpoint, DC, where would you put this one based on all the classes that have preceded it?
Well, you look at the ratings, and that's really what we have to go on now. And South Carolina's never had 2 5-star guys in a single class. So right there with Dylan Stewart and Josiah Thompson, you think, all right, well, that's a huge start. And then you've got just some straight playmakers in this class. Mazio Bennett, Jalewis Solomon, the list goes on of guys that have been there and done that throughout their high school careers. And obviously a big part of when you're looking at these recruits, who did South Carolina beat out to get them? Did they have to beat out East Carolina? Did they have to beat out Mercer? Did they have to beat out Duke and Wake Forest? Or did they beat out Auburn and Georgia and Florida State and maybe sometimes even Clemson? So you look at that and say, South Carolina's in a very good place. I'm actually putting together a piece right now listing the entire depth chart as we know it right now and saying, what did they need and what did they get? And really, there are a couple spots where it's like, you maybe didn't need to get offensive linemen because you've got a lot of them. But when you got guys like Cam Pringle and Josiah Thompson in state, you need to go get those guys for the future. And you got those guys. Of course, there's always going to be, you probably need a lockdown corner. You probably need a wide out, a true wide receiver 1. But I think they've got those guys. And plus, the portal is still open, that you can get some of these guys later on, and who they have will develop. So overall, you filled needs. That's what you always want to do. You got some star power, which always gets other people to notice. And the job is not over, but this is a very, very good start.
Yeah, the portal class is ranked 5th right now, which that when you and that's by 24/7 Sports, but we got to be really careful with that. When you look at that portal ranking, it's a little bit different from the high school, the way that you would look at the high school thing. The high school, you're building the future of your program. The portal, you're generally plugging holes, and you might not need a bunch of guys, or you might need a ton of guys. Last year, how many guys did Colorado sign last year? Guys, 40 out of the portal or something crazy. So no wonder they were going to be number 1. How many of them were really good? Yeah, maybe 10 of them. I don't know. But this group here seems like they did get there. JC's talked about this, and I want to turn it over and let you two do all the talking as much as y'all can. Y'all know more than I do. But it does seem like with the portal, it looks like they have, for the most part, I know they still want a quarterback, but it looks like they have really filled their needs. Running back, wide receiver, defensive tackle, defensive end. They needed all those things, and those are the first commitments they've gotten there.
No, sure. And running back obviously was the big, the glaring question that you needed after Mario Anderson, very surprisingly transferred. So who'd they go get? We'll just go get Rocket Sanders, first team All SEC 2 years ago. No big deal. And then you get Oscar Attaway from North Texas, and then Jawarn Howell from SC State. So not only did you fill that room for what you needed, you really improved it over what you had. So that was the big glaring need. They obviously addressed that with quarterback, and I think I've spoken this on the show before. from what I understand, Dowell Loggins with an NFL background, he's moving forward into kind of making that an NFL room to where you really only have 3 guys that you're talking about. That said, you got to have more depth. So right now they've got Lenoris, they've got Luke Doty, they've got Dante Reno. They got to go find another one. We know what happened with A.J. Swan. He was coming, then he wasn't. Again, it's the craziness of signing day. So I think if they're going to get a quarterback, it's going to be tough to pull one from the portal, because if you do, you're probably looking at a guy saying, I want to go somewhere and play. And right now they can't guarantee that. So maybe you can find a guy who can do that. But mostly I'm thinking that they start looking around at the local high schools or just somewhere in state and say, do you have a guy, pretty good quarterback or an athlete that might want to come here as a PWO, maybe as a scholarship guy, and just play, compete for a backup role, because you got to have depth in that spot. So don't know if they'll get another quarterback out of the portal. I certainly don't think one will happen today in any case, but there's a long time before they actually have to have one, as in August 1, let's call it, first day of season camp. So, again, I do think the future of that room is to get it to more of an NFL style, to where you've really only got 3 guys and you're talking to them. But as we all know, guys, it was only 2 years ago South Carolina started 4 different QBs in one season. So you've got to have somebody else in that room. And as they always say, you're supposed to bring in 1 quarterback a class. Dante Reno was that guy this year, and he's obviously very excited to be here, and he was instrumental in recruiting the rest of this class.
Yeah, what do y'all think about? What do you think about a quarterback maybe from the FCS level, somebody that might emerge in the spring market?
JC, you want to take that one?
Well, I said yesterday, David, I think Dowell Loggins been in the NFL 20 years. Those guys are pretty good at going and digging quarterbacks up. Your Garoppolos, your Tony Romos, your Josh Allens, the Bears backup this year, as dysfunctional and awful as that franchise is. I mean, he was an undrafted free agent from Shepherd's College in West Virginia, and Fields got hurt, and man, he came in there and looked like he belonged. And I think it's going to be that type of guy. I know they're still kind of talking to Malik Murphy a little bit, but I think it's got to be that type of guy that's better than people think. The kid from Western Kentucky that came off the bench and threw 5 touchdowns to lead the team back to victory the other night. Maybe that kind of guy. And I think that, we haven't really seen Dowell from an evaluation standpoint. He's got the 2026 kid committed, who's good, right? But he kind of inherited Reno. Sellers was already a guy people were interested in. So, we're about to find out about his evaluation ability, which I would think it would be pretty doggone good, considering this is the same kind of thing. You got to go scour the earth for a guy that can come in and fit, and fits in more than one way, not just good quarterback or whatever. A guy that can fit in and that's okay with whatever role, whether that's starter or otherwise, that he gets.
Yeah, and that's what I think too. I mean, it's a case of where, again, if there's quarterbacks in the portal, those guys are going somewhere else to play, or else and to start. I mean, or else it was a case like Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma or Riley Leonard from Duke. As soon as those guys entered the portal, how many of the crystal balls of the forecast do we see? Oh, he's going to Oregon. Oh, he's going to Notre Dame. Guys, we all know what's happening there. They entered because they knew that they had a spot carved out for them. So any of the others who were just kicking the tires, I mean, I know it was out there and it was immediately squashed with KJ Jefferson. Then it became another thing, and it's been immediately squashed with KJ Jefferson. It's not going to happen here. It's not. So we'll see what happens too with the Southern Cal quarterback. I'm in agreement with JC. It's like, if the guy's interested, you never want to turn it down, but that guy's not coming in here to ride the bench, and he's not coming in here to necessarily be a backup. So you can't even say, we're going to let you compete. No, I think I'm good enough to not compete, and I need to be promised that job. So if you get a guy out of the portal, it's going to have to be a guy who understands you're probably going to be, at best, fighting for the job, because we think we have our starter already in place. So you do go look at an FCS program. You do go look at some of the others, or like I said before, just Go around to some of these other high schools and say, are there athletes that played quarterback that might be able to do that, if we needed them to? A lot of these guys on this team, let's just say DQ Smith, for example, played quarterback in high school. He was part of the trend. Who's your best athlete? Put him back there behind center. That's what you got to do. Xavier Leggett played a little bit of QB at Mullins before he switched back to wideout. So you do got to have some depth in that case, but I think it's one of those, if you're running up against numbers and you need something at another position, which they can always use, again, like a top wide receiver, a top defensive back, you say you're pretty good on quarterback. You just need to go find a body before next August. And then you go concentrate on getting that playmaker out of the portal.
David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. It's 12:17 here on this Wednesday.
Bad news.
December the 20th. Bad news.
Bad news.
Okay.
Ready? Yeah, on this day. And it's kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of chaps my ass a little bit. Yeah. Jalen Nichols is in the portal. For those that didn't understand, that don't know, and I didn't say anything about it, he was going to get in the portal last year after the spring game, and got hurt, I guess, with the rehab. But he had agreed to come back and had an NIL deal and everything. So look for North Carolina to maybe be involved with that one. That sucks because they need him. I mean, that's your starting left tackle for next year. That one kind of gets me a little more than juice, just because I thought everything was okay with that guy.
Yeah, I would say look for North Carolina to be strongly involved in that. How would you say that?
I would venture to say, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. There's another spot on the offensive line. You know what? But when you look at, and that's where I was going next with this anyway. So dynamite drop in, Monty. That broadcasting school is really paying off for you. This class here, DC, I mean, you're talking about I talked to Greg Atkins a couple months ago. I mean, this is coming from him. Clearly, he's going to be a little bit more, one-sided on this. But he was like, we have 2 5-star tackles. I don't care what the rankings say. They love Cam Pringle. And they love Josiah Thompson, clearly, who is actually ranked as a 5-star. Cam's a high 4. And then you got Blake Franks, who JC says projects as more of an interior guy down the road out of Greenville. But I mean, it's just 3 linemen. It's not 5 or anything like that. But DC, here's another one. You can make the argument this is probably the best group we've ever seen on paper, and down the road we'll have to see if it pans out that way.
Yeah, sure. And you always look at it and say we'll know about these guys in 2 or 3 years, if they can really play, if they can come in and contribute right away. Obviously, with this news, it may push the envelope a little further and saying which one of these Great Wall of Carolina offensive linemen, which one of these guys can go ahead and come in and make an immediate impact. And no, it is not desirable to have a true freshman out there playing on the offensive line. At this point, during this season, they had no other choice. They had to do it. They just didn't have anybody else. And now you might have a little more of that this year. So at least it's happening now. It's not happening after the spring. And in a case of experience, it was, well, at least you're used to not playing without Jalen Nichols. Of course, you couldn't do it all of last year. So, yes, it is a surprise because everything looked to be good, but that's the way things happen this day and age. So we'll see what happens, but you look at the guys that did get experience this year, and if nothing else, the offensive line got a lot of experience because so many of them got hurt. You had to keep shuffling guys in. So you'll just have to find a new guy in there, or there could be other guys in the transfer portal now that you can say, I want to go get that guy now. So could be that there's not going to be a delay on the press conference today, but keep in mind that, yes, it's signing day, but the portal is open until January 2nd. So there's still a whole lot of days that this thing can go that they could possibly find another one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of increases the likelihood Big Tree stays at tackle this year instead of sliding inside. And you got the interior, you still got Ball, you got Marquis Anderson, you got Vershawn Lee. That other tackle spot, though, man, like I said, I mentioned putting Case and Henry in bubble wrap yesterday because his injury is one where you just cannot keep rushing it back. He's just got to stay off of it. He's certainly capable, but I do think this. I think this was bad. This is not a positive thing unless they do find a guy in the portal that's a starter kind of like the kid that from Texas Tech that went to Louisville. But that was Jalen was a guy that because he started so long, he's been there so long, you feel comfortable about him, getting out there and being your guy. But it couldn't all be sunshine and rainbows today, and so that's bad. That one stings. But does this raise a flag with O-line coaching? Well, I don't know what it would have to do with coaching, Ed.
Well, it's interesting timing. You enter the portal on signing day.
It is, yeah, and I remember everything too. Remember, I did say this almost happened last year out of nowhere, and had he not gotten hurt in the spring game, they were planning on him not being there. I mean, they thought North Carolina had gotten him. Now, the last I'd heard on this, he was fine. I know for a fact he accepted it. I think he signed an NIL deal with Garnet Trust. But who knows? Who knows? I like Jalen. He's a good kid, but it's just kind of, man, you're going to sit here and rehab all year and be a part of the team and talk about you coming back and then bolt. I mean, I don't get that, but that's usually how that goes down. Marshawn Lloyd left the same way. So,
DC, the quarterback in this class is Dante Reno. He's probably been the biggest cheerleader outside of the program for well over a year now. What do you make of him and his talent and what the Gamecocks are getting?
I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. The kid's been committed since July of 2022. So it's a long time he's been in there, never wavered. He was the guy that immediately signed and started talking to all his buddies, all the other ones in the class, saying, hey, come play with me. Let's really build something special. That's the kind of thing you want to have, and that he's bought in. Just from a couple of conversations I've had with him, his coaches, his parents, it's one of those where he knows, kind of the situation here. But in that, it certainly looks like Lenore Sellers will be QB1, but he's also viewing as like, well, hey, okay, but let me just go in there and see what I can do. He's coming in unafraid. He knows that he can come in here and really show off what he can do. He's got a great arm. If you guys hadn't seen the last pass of his high school career, it was for the game-winning touchdown in the league that they're in, their state championship. I believe I'm going to get the initials wrong, but the New England private school, they call it the Bowl, and they won the state championship on his last throw in high school. So, good kid, great talent, just kind of continuing that Northeast pipeline coming down here to Columbia. And you always got to get a quarterback. That's who everybody's going to pay a lot of attention to. And now, like I said, you've got three guys in that room. There may be one more, there may not, but those three guys are probably going to be who plays. So we'll see what happens as we get toward the spring practice. I'm looking forward to getting a definitive answer from Shane Beamer today, even though I kind of already know the answer about all right, now what's the deal going to be, especially now that you don't have a fourth quarterback? What are you going to do with Luke Doty? Is he going to be a permanent wide receiver? He kind of answered it by saying, well, he's looking forward to kind of sticking the role that he's in where he mostly reps at receiver but can go to quarterback. I'm like, okay, is he going to get a shot to start? I don't want to make it seem like it's any kind of competition or anything, but it's like, is that an option, or do you kind of like him as he's an emergency guy to fill in because you're kind of running out of bodies? That being said, if is the answer, terrific for Luke. You upgrade your receiver room there, but now Reno's number 2.
Right.
Okay. And it should be a very interesting spring. So, it's what you got to have. Of course, no spot's going to be promised, but of course, you look at social media right now, everybody's already carving that Heisman out for Lenoris in a couple of years. So we'll see what happens. But, they've got talent in that room. They just need one more body to really just kind of fill it out, because even while the fourth guy's not going to get many reps, you got to have that fourth guy. Again, 2 years ago, I remember distinctly, I was sitting at my sister's house in Hartsville. We're all in the pool, having fun with my boy and all. And then I get a text, hey, man, thought you ought to know Luke Doty broke his foot today. I'm like, excuse me? And that kind of shot the whole day. And I go to practice. I'm like, who's that number 25 out there throwing the ball? Oh, that's Zeb. Who?
Zeb's dead, baby. Zeb's dead.
2 weeks later, there's Zeb starting the first game. And I'm like, oh, great. So
That's right. Hey, we've come a long way around here, haven't we? Somebody was trying to make the argument the other day that there's another coach in the league up at Missouri who had done more with less or whatever, and I'm like, wait a second. In year one, Shane Beamer took a team to a bowl game and got mayonnaise dumped on his head with a grad assistant, a quarterback. What do you mean done more with less? How much less can you do it with than that?
A dude with a broken foot, a graduate assistant quarterback, and a D2 guy.
Yeah, all right.
And all that good stuff. So
amazing they won 7 games with that. Amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing.
It is interesting to think about it, right? Now that the dust has settled, that they won 7 games that year.
I mean, yeah, and then they finally figured out who the best quarterback on the roster was in the bowl game. They didn't play him until the end, Come to find out, I think 2019, 2020, and 2021, DeCarrion probably could have been the starting quarterback here, and things would have probably been a little better. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how he'd fit into the SAT attack with all the – he'd probably done something really good, and SAT would have bitched him for not running his plays. But Bobo, and then Bobo didn't know really. Bobo's not a dual threat play caller either, but BMAC sure as hell could have used him in 19. They probably wouldn't have gone 4-8 with everybody's favorite one-hit wonder, Ryan Helinski, playing. So that's the thing right there. But that was a miracle, and it is. As sad as it was to go 5-7 with Spencer Rattler back there, that first team kind of makes up for it. David, I'll ask you because you're not in the recruiting thick of things, so to speak. You have to cover it, but does it feel different this year to you? Like, do you think the portal has become like a black hole as far as it goes? Because this whole week is like signing day, and I'm usually fired up about it, and I'm like, oh yeah. This year, it's just like the transfer portals just sucked the life out of it. I mean, this Jalen Nichols news is going viral quicker than Dylan Stewart signing today. So your thoughts on that and how it's kind of changed what you got to pay attention to as a member of the media?
I feel, extremely bad for the coaches who, a big part of the job, a huge part of the job is recruiting. And it's not just going to get this kid and getting his commitment, getting his signature. You got to keep talking to him. Even after he says, I'm going to come play for you, you got to keep talking to him and making sure they feel that that's, they're where they need to be. But then with transfer portal coming on, it's one more thing you got to worry about. And that when the kids decide to transfer, they don't even have to tell you as the coach. No. They don't. All they got to do is tell their compliance officer at the university. And then you might be as surprised as anybody else saying, excuse me, what? He's in the portal too? But you just have to deal with it. So I get what you're saying, JC. I mean, of course, when in the old days when signing day was in February, you're going around, you mostly know what's going to happen, but there's always a few surprises. Now it's pretty much as soon as that last game of the regular season ends, you have to block out quite a few days on your schedule when we do what we do to say who's entering and who's not. Who's going to be back? Because it can be anyone at any time. And with this recent ruling that the NCAA has handed to it, now there's not even any more restrictions on how many times you can transfer. That may stay, that may not. But at least for right now, open season. You want to leave, there's no penalty. So you just have to keep looking around. You have to make sure that you're talking to a guy and you say, we've got a good understanding. But even then, as JC mentioned, you may have an understanding, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. So it does get to a point to where the agony and the ecstasy of this day gets taken down because the transfer portal is just every day, Right. And every time you wake up and think, well, who could be leaving today? Who could be coming today? And it's just something that you have to, keep up with as well. So I do not envy the coaches for what they have to do. I don't envy, my fellow compadres in the business because every time it's there, it's like, all right, well, you go confirm it. And once that's done, you say, all right, well, this is out, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's just you get in or you're gone. And I guess the old phrase is adapt or die. This is what you have to deal with. So South Carolina gets some bad news that it's projected starting left tackle is not going to be here next year. Okay. But you immediately have to start looking at not so much a silver lining, but could there be good news that comes out of it? Sure. You lost your starting running back unexpectedly. You ended up getting an all SEC guy, right? Maybe that can happen. Maybe there's some great offensive linemen in the portal right now who you know you can get. Maybe there are other guys that will enter that you know you can get. And no matter what, you've at least got the whole card of having the spring session when the portal opens as well. So it's rough, but you have to deal with it. And again, I know that the coaches that I talk to, and not just at South Carolina, all over, they can't stand it. They cannot stand that you think you have your roster in a good place and it's all set, and then all of a sudden gone. Somebody else leaves. But there's nothing you can do about it. And it's because the NCAA boogered this up from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And when they said it's like, hey, this is cool now, you figure it out, like, okay. So it's just the way it's going to be, and you have to deal with it.
Braylon Lee, by the way, he flips to Maryland. I've told you guys for a while, don't be mad. It's just a family thing. I think his dad died recently, and he actually passed away before he committed to Carolina. But look, we having lost a parent at that age, as time goes on and it gets real, it's hard to leave mom, especially if mom doesn't want you to leave. So unlike Jay Sean Barham, which was a complete clown show when he decided to stay home and go to Maryland, and now notice he's at Michigan. Please don't hate on that guy. And by the way, somebody in the chat box said Jalen Nichols was going off on the fan base on Instagram, responding to the Mario Anderson thing. Number one, fans, that's why you don't get into it, and you don't give players an opening to criticize you. But so I get it, but I guess it some enterprising person that I don't know who pays attention to all that Instagram stuff, but I guess we could have seen it coming because he mentioned that the fan base was broke. How about that? Broke. And I'm like, just because you're not getting a whole bunch of money, I mean, what have you done to really? I mean, are you a first round? I mean, you're lucky. You'll be lucky to be drafted, Jalen. You're a good college player. I don't know how much anybody else has offered you, but you can go get that there, go, because you're probably not going to make it in the NFL. Anyway, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think DC. That's and we'll let you run here in just a minute too. But that's one of the things that this is growing, and I don't like it at all. The fans and players going back and forth at each other, and players leaving, taking shots at fan bases, fans taking shots at players. It's just knock it off. Like, let's be adults here. Isn't there an adult in the room somewhere? I mean, come on, guys.
No, social media, there is no adult in the room. There's no.
There are no adults.
Because a lot of people get real brave when they're sitting behind an anonymous handle and a keyboard.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it drives me up the wall. And JC he's got a good point. Like, that doesn't. Everybody sees it, and there's 80,000 people that walk into that ballpark every week at South Carolina in the fall, and if you get one moron or two morons that do something stupid on social media, it becomes addictive of the entire fan base, and it's just embarrassing. People just need to just leave it alone. And same thing with the players. Like, this kid is going to transfer. This is part of his resume. It's going to follow him, and I don't understand why these young men don't understand this stuff. It makes no sense to me.
Well, and look, if you're a fan out there, understand. And it's never the folks on Big Spur. It's never the folks that we interact with here. It's a subsection of the fan base that they're lucky to know who's on the damn roster, right? But their 2 cents are more valuable to them than gold, and they've almost become, I don't want to say it's a mental illness, but it is. Like, they're mentally addicted to Twitter and think that all of a sudden, they're relevant in the grand conversation of things. Guess what? You're not. If what you say on Twitter as a fan means absolutely not a damn thing to anybody. You don't matter. You may think you have a voice, but you don't. All you do when you say things like that is make things worse. makes things worse. And I'm all for it's freedom of speech. Everybody can have an opinion you want, but your speech does have consequences when you talk out of your rectum. So, or type out of your rectum as it is.
That's right. Well, today's about the players who are going to play at South Carolina. DC, we know you'll have that all covered in the post curve. Before we let you go, Gamecock basketball, the men's side. The last two haven't been pretty, but they do have a tradition around here. It's called losing those games, and they haven't done that. At least they're winning. They're now 10-1 for the first time since the 2015-2016 team. That team itself thought that they probably got shafted. They should have been in the tournament. They weren't. The next year they went to the Final Four. But anyways, at the end of the day, we got Elon coming up next, and then Florida A&M. They're staring 12-1 in the face if they can get there. And then, wow, that Mississippi State game becomes enormous in Columbia on January the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've said, I'm not trying to be David Downer. I'm not, because it's fun to be winning again. It is fun to be winning again, and you guys mentioned it. You know all the early November, December losses of the past 4 or 5 years, and those just tanked the season before it ever got started because you knew that no matter what, you would probably get to the time of year where you present your resume to the committee, and they're like, you lost to who? See ya. That's just how it is at South Carolina because they don't have the historical tradition of being a tournament team. This is what I believe, If it's somebody like Syracuse and they have a bad year, like, geez, Cuse is only 19-13. I don't think we can take them. Oh, man, that's Syracuse. You got to get them in. Come on, take them in. And they go. With South Carolina, it's like they lost to who? Illinois State. Yeah, see you. Bye.
Yeah.
So that's where the frustration came in because you knew that those early losses were just going to be that albatross around the neck. They don't have one of those right now, and they shouldn't have after the next 2 games with Elon and FAMU because, this schedule was made for a reason for this team to get some confidence, get some hay in the barn. And no, they haven't been pretty, but they've been scrap fights the last 3 games, and they've won them all. So that's the thing you like to have, to get some confidence in there to say, okay, you can do this. I mean, last night, no, it wasn't the most flawlessly executed game. A lot of it was the officiating. I mean, I got there, and after I'm checking off the roster, I always look at the refs. I'm like, well, let's see who the 3 stripes are. Pat Adams. Great. This is going to be a fun game. There's 4 men's officials. If I see their name on there, I'm like, nope. This ain't gonna be good. And he's number 1 because you just know what's gonna happen, and it happened. But they won the game. Everything's cool, and it's just fun to be winning. Now, the main thing is that yes, there's a lot to work on. That Mississippi State game is going to be big because it's at home to start SEC. Right now, their best player, Tolu Griffin, he has not played all year because he broke his foot over the offseason. He is on track to play. That doesn't mean he will. Whether he plays or not, that's one you got to get that one. You got to get that one. You'll be 1-0 in the league because those next 2, you're like, and that whole first month of January, the league may be the best it's ever been, top to bottom. So it's just a case of you get in there and you just can't get overwhelmed early. These kind of tough games, it's getting to the point to where all basketball teams can really get in this mode if you don't have just a super superior team. Say, listen, just hang in there. Hang in there to the last media timeout. Get within a bucket or 2 in the last 4 minutes. We'll see if we can steal one here and there. And a lot of times that worked. I mean, last year, we all knew it was a lost cause. That season was over before it started. They just didn't have the talent. But they had to know that season was over. And the last 8-10 games, they still fought their butts off. And they won some big games. Number 2 pick in the draft don't go for 40 points. They beat Alabama, who ended up winning the league,
Right.
So it's good to see that team winning, to have some confidence. And then, of course, the ladies went on the road with a tough environment where it was really cold. And they put on a career performance. Made their first 10 shots, 5 threes. Chloe Kitts had a career high. Breezy Hall played outstanding. And they're going to have a long break now. They don't play again until December 30th, but they're undefeated. They're number 1. With the women's team, as much as I like it, I'm like, I kind of get the sense maybe Coach Staley wouldn't mind losing one of these. Just go ahead and get the pressure off, But we'll see what happens in conference play. Right now, the countdown is on for them, January 25th at LSU.
Oh,
so that will be the one, but there's a lot of basketball to be played. But either way, it's good for winning. One last note on signing day, I guess the only guy who they had in the coffer is Jaden McGowan, who I haven't seen a letter from yet. They haven't announced it yet. So we'll see what's happening there. All the others were, expected additions, expected subtractions. So we'll see what happens. But, JC, if you got an update on Jaden McGowan.
He'll either be heading to the Boston Tea Party, and taking what I think is a ridiculous NIL offer, but this is America, right? So your market value is what someone's willing to pay you, or he'll come to South Carolina. I mean, the trend was he's still coming to Carolina. I mean, he's still committed, he hadn't decommitted or anything, but we'll see what happens with that one. I just, if someone's willing to pay him what people think or have rumored to pay him, then Boston's nice, except for the winter. It's just a nice town. You can go get lobster down on the dock, lobster bisque, and hang out, watch the Sox. So I don't know, but we'll see what happens there. I'll tell you this: I'm not worried about it. I mean, either way, South Carolina's going to be fine. But
I know that there was one prospect today who was not planning to have his ceremony or sign his letter until 4:25 Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure who that was, but obviously Jaden is in Nashville right now. So I don't know if there will be a Jaden McGowan listed on the official report we get at 3:00. But that doesn't mean anything. It just means they just may not have the paperwork out yet. So we'll see what happens. Shane will talk at 3:00. I'm going to ask him some other things about general housekeeping with football as well. So be sure to stay tuned with that. And, we'll just keep on keeping on. Portal stays open until January 2nd. So hopefully there's no more bad news and some more good news, and can start getting that roster together for spring ball.
DC, yep.
Let me clarify this, everybody out there griping about it. Jalen Nichols did not take the money and run. He just signed the deal. So they tore the contract up when he got in the portal. So he's not, unlike Juice, who did receive compensation. He hasn't, because I see everybody, it just took our fans' money and ran. No, he didn't. He did not get, they did not execute that contract yet. So he's good to go.
DC, can't thank you enough for the extended time today. We know you'll be busy with Gamecock football and basketball the rest of the week, but most importantly, the end of the week and early next week is Christmas, and I hope you and your family and your little boy have the merriest of Christmases. Thanks for all you do, not really just for us, but for all the Gamecocks, because you cover it so well. It makes us all better, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I hope you got a good Santa set up, ready to roll. Good Santa.
Absolutely. With that, I'm going to play a game I invented called Race the Six Pack. If I can put together his bicycle before I finish the sixer, I win.
Race the six pack.
So,
that's amazing. Yeah, you can't lose that game. It's a game you cannot lose.
I encourage it for all you dads out there who know what we go through on Christmas Eve. So.
I played that game. I didn't realize it had a name. I
got to go find my ratchet set. I don't know what I did with it. It's somewhere down in the basement.
I luckily it's going to be a little. It won't be like 30 here on Christmas Eve. I've got a whole play set outside and a basketball goal that need to get. So I'm with you. I'll be racing. So I don't know if it'll be beer, but it'll be racing something. Yeah.
I asked the wife. I said, is he too young for gift cards? And she looked at me and said he's 3. So I said, is that a no? We can start trying to pull up something on Amazon and let him pick.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
You see you sitting there with a 3-year-old. No, that's more than 25. No.
I mean, he's just going to be playing with the paper in the box anyway, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, right.
It's how you teach them math. Exactly. The box is always more valuable at that age. There's no question.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, we're going to take him to his first basketball game over Christmas break. So see how he likes that.
Well,
Awesome.
y'all enjoy it. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we look forward to getting you back here in a couple of weeks, hopefully with a big basketball game on the horizon.
Sounds good. Sounds good, guys. Happy holidays, and hope it's a great Christmas night.
There you go. Hey, old DC.